Welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about the extrude command, and I'm going to show you examples of it. So let's get started. In order to extrude something, which is basically a three-dimensional pull of an object turning into a solid or a hollow shape, we start with a 2D sketch. So we'll start one. And I'm going to pick this plane right here, the XZ plane as always. It rotates up and I like to straighten it out so top is upright. And let's draw, let's say two objects. We'll draw a rectangle over here and we'll draw a circle somewhere over here. And how big shall we make them? Well, let's make the circle 100. Nice even number. The rectangle, well, let's make that 100 by 50. Okay. 100 radius, 100 tall, 50 wide. That sounds good. Let's finish our sketch. And let's zoom it back out to something reasonable. There we go. And using the mouse wheel, of course, rotating it, we zoom out a little. And let's get into the extrude command. In its simplest form, the extrude command, you click on it, and in its simplest form, the two things it requires is it requires a profile, which we have a couple here. The profile has to be an enclosed shape. It cannot just simply be a line or a squiggly line. It has to form some kind of a shape. So we'll choose the rectangle, and the sketching plane we've already established. It did it for us actually. So now we just figure out how tall we want to make it. Let's see. I can type it there, I can type it here. How about 200? Alright, 200, 200, that all looks good. And we'll OK it. There. Our simple extrude. Now I'll extrude the circle. Or where did it go? Okay, there's two things that happen here. When you extrude a shape like that or a profile, it kind of hides everything from the sketch. See, I just expanded the extrusion, which now the sketch is embedded inside of in the model tree. And you can see when I just touch sketch here, I can see the circle and I can see the rectangle. So one thing you could do is you could right click on sketch and turn its visibility on. Now you can see it. Now if you wanted to hit extrude again, selecting profile, notice it's got the blue line under it, so it's ready to go. We'll just pick that. And if I hit OK, look at that. That's one way to do it. Now let's get rid of the extrudes. I'm going to hit delete. We're back to our sketch, and I'm going to turn the visibility back off. Now we'll click on our sketch. It's selected, so now when I hit extrude, zoom out a little. And now we'll choose our rectangle. We like it to be 200. But here is another thing you can do with the extrude command. I want to also do the circle. Now if I click on circle, now I have it, and it is going to be tied to the height of the rectangle. See, I've chosen both. I can choose as many as I want off this sketch. They'll all be mimicked right there. But that's not what I wanted. So I'm going to cancel this. We're going to extrude again. We'll choose the rectangle. I want them to be independent. So that's where this green plus sign comes in at. Apply and create a new extrusion. So if I hit this green plus sign, first of all, I've got to make sure all of these things are set the way I want it. And they are. So I'm going to hit the green plus sign. That's going to start the extrude command over while I'm in the same sketch. How handy is that? So now I can choose the circle and I can move it down. I don't want it quite as tall. I think I'll make it 150. Or I can just do it right here. Doesn't matter either way. And now when I OK it, they are independent of each other. They have their own extrudes. Here's the extrude for the rectangle, and here's the extrude for the cylinder. Was a circle. Now it's a cylinder. Okay. So that's the extrude, a little advanced option. So what else can we do with an extrude? Well, how do you edit an extrude? Well, if I hit the little plus sign, you can see there's a sketch that underlies the extrusion. Every extrude or every extrusion has an underlying sketch. I can right-click on this extrude right here, which is the rectangle, and I can choose between Edit Feature, which is the extrusion command. I can modify it, or I can Edit Sketch, which is the rectangle that's underneath it. So let's see what that does. I'm going to edit the sketch. And notice it brings up the sketch. Let's say I wanted that 100 to be 120. And I'll OK it. And that 50, let's make that 25. Okay, so I've lengthened the longest part and shortened the shortest part. Now when I hit Finish Sketch, the extrusion should kick in, and being this parametric design, it should extrude the same height, but now the dimensions will be different. Here we go. See that? That's very cool. Okay, and did not affect the cylinder in any way. So now if I go and I say Edit Feature this time, and this time I'm choosing the cylinder to mess with. If I right click and say Edit Feature, and of course there's a sketch. Notice that it's sketch 27. Oh, here we go. Sketch 26 is underneath both of them, but they are using the sketched items separately, even though they are both part of the same sketch. It's really cool. Slightly confusing, but really cool. So this time, instead of modifying the sketch that draws the underlying feature of the extrusion, I'm going to modify the extrusion itself. I'm going to right click on it and say Edit Feature this time. And this time I am actually editing the extrusion part of the sketch. Let's make it 250. Now it's tall. We'll OK it. There. So that is how you can edit the underlying sketch, change its shape, move it around, and how you can modify the extrusion portion of it. Again, it's Edit Sketch for the sketch part of it, Edit Feature for the extrusion. And you will notice that a lot of these commands up here have the same pattern. You can edit the sketch of them, or you can edit the feature of them. Okay, so we've extruded these two items here. What else can you do? Well, here's a cool trick. Extrusions are done on planes. Now you notice when we first started, we put it on the XZ plane. And that's where we drew our sketch that we extruded, which basically every plane is a drawing surface for the most part. And a plane can be a flat surface, like that's a plane and that's a plane. You remember our discussion about planes. Flat surfaces are planes. That's not really a plane, but that's a plane. So let's draw something on that plane. Alright, so we'll do a 2D sketch. Sketch on that plane. We're going to draw a rectangle. We're going to draw two rectangles. We're going to draw one rectangle here, and we'll draw one way over here. And we'll make it kind of overlap the other one. And we'll finish our sketch, And notice that because we are elevated, this extrusion is taller than this extrusion. You can see that that rectangle is hovering above. The new rectangle is hovering above the old one. Now you can hit extrude. You can choose our shapes. Choose them both. We won't make them quite as tall. Let's go with 150 just because. Okay. I hit OK, and there we have it. This extrusion is solidly touching the cylinder, the top of the cylinder, whilst this one is not. So let's do something interesting with the extrusion command, which will cover a few more options that it can do. Like I said, these two are not touching each other, so let's make them join each other. So what we can do, this is interesting here, I'll show you this trick. We will sketch on this surface right here. So I'm going to click on it and hit 2D sketch. Now here's the interesting thing, is if I go over to project geometry, and I click on it, and I want to project the geometry of this rectangle above the other one. Yeah, I can do that too. And just to be certain, I'm going to project the geometry of this one. Mostly this line right here is the one I need. So what should happen is if I hold shift, push down the mouse wheel, I can see an outline right here that would match this rectangle here, drawn on the face of this one. Now, the reason I did that, I'm going to finish my sketch, is now I want to extrude this shape, this rectangle here, up into this one. And I want to show you some options with the extrude command. Well, let's choose it, and we will choose for our profile this one right here that we just drew. Oh, and look at that. It has that line right there chosen. I don't want this. I only want this. Okay. So we'll zoom out a little, and you can see it's extruding in the correct direction, and we want it to join with the rectangle above it. Well, it's defaulting to 31.250 millimeters. Let's explore some of these commands here. This one's called through all, this one's called to, and this one is called to next. Let's start with the to next. If I click on to next, it extruded to the next object, which was this hovering rectangle. That would join it together. Okay, now to undo that, I just click it again, and it turns off. It's a toggle. It's on, it's off. It's on, and by the way, it says to next. Well, that's the next solid. What if I wanted to clear that selection and choose something else to extrude to? Like say to the next, well, it would be that solid there. I don't think I really have much choice. Yep. So it extrudes to that solid. What if I chose something over here? Nope. It just goes to the next solid. Okay, that's fine. So that's neat. The next one here is called to. Now when I click on to, it literally means extrude to what level? Well, one way to extrude to that is I want to extrude to this surface right here. So I just select it, click on it, and I've extruded to that surface, to that face. And you can see that even says face. But wait, there's more. So I'm going to clear the face being chosen. And what if I were to extrude to the top of this rectangle, to that face? Well, I'll choose it, and sure enough, you can see that it extruded all the way through that rectangle to the top of that face right there, to that face that we chose. Here's something interesting. I'm going to clear this selection. We're still on the 2, you can have it extrude to a face that it's not going to touch. For instance, the top of this cylinder. I'm going to click it, and now you can see it extruded all the way through until it was level with the face I had chosen, which is over here. So you can extrude to faces that you are either going to run up against or ones that are parallel. Or I guess perpendicular in this case. But anyway, you can extrude to a face that is not going to touch. And that's enormously handy. So I'm going to clear that, and then the next choice here is called Through All. When I click Through All, it literally goes through everything until it runs out of things to go through, and then it stops. So that's nice, because one of the things that Through All will let you do is you can do a cut on top of that, and now you go through all. Well, it changed direction on me. It went through all of that. Let's reverse the direction, go where, there we go. So the through all in that direction, using the cut option, removes material. Well, we don't want to cut, we want to join, so that's join right there. Okay, so that explains these three options here: through all, to, and to next. And we'll just put it on to next because that's where I wanted it to go, and that explains those options there. We'll cover these guys here in a minute. But I wanted to also show you this right here. Extrude is what we're in, but if you wanted to just see Sketch 30, you just click right here, and not only can you see the sketch, but you can also see what it's trying to do in wire form. And in wire form, it makes it a little easier to see what's going on sometimes. So we'll get back to extrude. But the wire form vision of that is kind of neat. Yep, preview is on. If I turn off the preview, look, it's wire form. Turn it back on, you can see what it's going to do. Very cool. Okay, so I'm going to OK that. And now I think I want to experiment with another option of, oh, well, here we go. Let's extrude from this surface right here. So I'll just choose that surface and hit sketch. And so now I'm on the surface, and let's draw let's drill a hole. Literally drill a hole. So I'm going to put a hole right here. We shall make it how large? Let's make it 25 millimeters. Very good. Finish my sketch. And of course now, when I tell it to extrude, it always seems to want to pop away. Yep, it's trying to go that way. We'll minimize this a little bit. Let's change the direction. We'll flip it. And when I flip it, it automatically switched to cut mode from join mode. So it's going to cut through. If I click and hold this and drill this like this, now I've got something that is going all the way through both of them. So I am drilling a hole all the way through. And you can see right there, all the way through. So if I hit OK, there's my hole. And it went all the way through both blocks. Okay. So that's that extrusion. I'm going to hit delete and get rid of it. Yeah, I'll go ahead and get rid of the circles that I put on there. Alright, let's play around a little bit more with extrusion. So I will choose the surface again, and I'll hit extrude. I forgot to draw a circle, so it is putting me in sketch mode so I can. So I'll put a little circle right here. Let's well, let's do this. Let's make it strangely large. Okay, you can see it's larger than the thing it's in front of. And let's run it all the way through to the other side. Alright, let's try that. So we'll hit Finish Sketch. Now, because I started in Extrude, it is in Extrude mode. Okay, so let's cover these options right here. The direction behavior. Right here, default is to grow away from whatever object we drew on. This one flips the direction. And you can see now it's cutting a hole through everything that matches that circle. Okay. And it went 747.75 millimeters through. Now, if there was anything over here of value on this side and you didn't want it to cut through, too bad. Except, now we can also, in addition to using the through all, which would run it through all the objects until it ran out of objects, we can also extrude it to, say, that surface. Or we can say to next, which would extrude all the way through to there, and then that would stop. Or we can change the solid to this solid, maybe. Looks like it wants to go through that solid. So, alright, whatever makes it happy. But we'll turn it off. And here's another thing you should know. Is this one right here, symmetric? Wherever you started your profile, you click on symmetric, what that allows you to do is you can symmetrically pull away using your profile as a center and extrude in both directions. Now right now I'm in extrude with the cut option chosen. If I were to switch over to the join option, now when I extrude in both directions, it's equally extruding the left and the right and creating solid. Okay. Same thing. Well, okay, and then here's the cut one. Now, we'll put it on cut, and we'll go over to asymmetric. So we were on symmetric where this actually grows and shrinks equally. Asymmetric allows you to make these grow and shrink independently. So say I wanted to go that far with this one, and this one, if there was anything there, I would want it to grow and cut whatever is in front here. So that's what asymmetric does. It allows you to push and pull or change the distances independent of each other. Okay, so we'll put it back to flipped, and we'll also make it go all through everything. Now back to this. Here's the join, where it actually joins the material you just added, and we'll go to next with it. I like the 2 myself. There. I like using 2 because it's an old habit of mine from Creo-Parametric. So we went to the surface, far surface that I chose. And we are in the join. We can also do a cut. This one's interesting, intersect. Everything that this solid is touching, and it's a solid right now, everything it touches will be shown, I guess you could say. And everything that it does not touch will be erased. Let's watch this. Intersect. So what you are seeing is, we'll turn that off so we can manually move this. Everything that touches this extrude that I'm making right now, everything it touches is going to be included inside the shape that I'm extruding across. And everything that is outside of the profile will be erased. See that? Everything outside of that circle that I just extruded with the intersect command chosen has been erased, except for what is inside of that profile. Weird, 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 and highly useful. Here we'll edit the feature again. So if I only went this far, about halfway, and okayed it. Yeah, because it's not touching anything further in a solid, so you don't get to see it. Very interesting. So let's modify the feature, and this time we'll tell it to make a new solid. Okay, and we'll run it out that far. We'll okay it. Now we have a new solid, not necessarily merged with what it's touching, because you can still see. You can still see it there. Yep, there. So it's created a new solid. It really, to me, isn't much different than the join. You know, you got new solid or join. Other than it changes color a little bit. And I'm sure it has an advanced property, but in my experience, it hasn't been much difference. Okay. And for the last part of this, I want to show you an extrude feature that allows you to include or intersect an object. But I figured it would make more sense if I used something a little more conventional than the pretend objects I wrote or designed. So let's try it. Let's make the head of a bolt. So we'll go to this plane right here, our 2D sketch, rotate that up, and somewhere in here is polygon. We want to be 6-sided because that's what a head of a bolt does look like. We'll put it right here, and I'm going to turn it something like that. And we will straighten it there. And that's good. I'm not even going to change the measurements of it. That's how cool this command is going to be. I don't even have to know how big it is. Well, apparently it's pretty big. So let's zoom it back out. Scroll up, down this way. And let's extrude it up. Ooh, this is going to be big. So let's go up. Oh, that looks about right. Something like that. So we'll okay it. It's going to take an awfully big wrench. So one of the things about the head of a bolt is you like to round these corners off. But to round them off in such a way that you still have these flat sides, by rounding these corners off, it makes it so it's less likely to catch and rip things. And it just looks much nicer. So let's go ahead and round them. And the best way to do it is we'll select the top of this head of the bolt. And we shall sketch on it. And what we want, we'll project the geometry of the bolt so that we have stuff to sketch on. That line right there would be great. So let's draw a circle from the center all the way out to that line I just projected from. Oh, it is big. And we'll stick our circle in there and we'll say finish the sketch. Okay, so now I have a circle right about where I want to round these corners. I want to round them on a 30-degree angle because that sounds cool. So anyway, so let's go ahead and do it. Let's do an extrude. This is interesting. Now, of course, the extrude goes the wrong way. So if I push it this way, you notice it is drilling a hole in the middle of our bolt head. Not to worry, because right now we're using cut. which it automatically chose, we're going to use something called intersect. So when you type or click on intersect, the other thing that we're going to do, everything intersect does is everything it runs through gets included, and everything outside of that circle profile that we chose gets deleted, erased. So right now we have included basically a cylinder. But that's not what I wanted. I want to taper this out, say about 30 degrees. So if I type in a 30, you can see now what it's starting to do as I move this down. This cone that it created, along with the intersect, is getting rid, and I'll zoom in, getting rid of these corners, which is essentially rounding them. I think that's very clever. So we'll go out here. And I didn't even have to know how deep it was. And of course, the further down this goes, the more it will include, even though it's including stuff that doesn't exist. Probably the most efficient thing to do is to give it a 2, this face, and that's all the further it needs to go down. Everything it needs to include is included, and so now when I OK it, it has rounded the heads, or rounded the top of that head. Likewise, you could do the same thing on this side. Just kind of click on it, decide you're going to draw on it, include a side, could be that side or that side, draw a circle on it, run it out to the side that you want it to touch, but no further and no less than far enough. Great English. So, and then same thing. Use your extrude command, change its direction, change it to intersect, and change the degrees that it's going to intersect to something like 30. And the last thing is make it intersect all the way down to the bottom. And that right there rounds both sides of that bolt. So if you had, say, a shaft on this bolt, I'm just going to throw one on here just so you can visualize it better. We'll go out to there. Sounds good. Rotate it down. Extrude it away. That is one weird looking bolt, because normally you don't have a circle that big, which you would want to get rid of. You would have something more reasonable. For instance, if you had a circle that looked more like that. That looks more proportional. And we'll turn it this way, extrude it down. Now it's starting to look like the real thing, isn't it? Okay. So there you have it. That would be how you would round the corners of a bolt head using just the extrude command, but using it in a clever way, which would be using a taper and using the intersect features of it. And there you have it.